Hello, my name is Zach Rye with Old Man Gaming, and this is another Snap Judgment review. What's a Snap Judgment review if you've never listened before? Well, I think that a lot of game reviews nowadays get very caught up in the fact that they have to 100% the game. They lose sight of whether the game is just fun right off the bat or not. So, what I do is I get about 5 to 10 hours with these games, and I'm just trying to give you an idea whether you're going to enjoy them or not. That, coupled with the fact that I think games are one of the most subjective forms of art, I will not be giving a score on this review. Instead, I'll be telling you what the game is, the overview of it, and then the pros and the cons of the game in my point of view, as all reviews are, and then whether personally I will be sticking with the game outside of the purposes of this review. So what are we reviewing today? Disclaimers out of the way. I'm excited to do Wartales as our last review of 2023. I'm a little bit late on this one, both for its original release and then its Game Pass release. I was just caught up in other games, but this was one that when I first saw it released, I was really excited, and it's one that has just been on my wish list for a while, and I finally got to get into it. And so let me talk about it. What is Warframe? Wartales. I hope I said Wartales to begin with, and not Warframe, because that would make this review very confusing. Wartales. We're reviewing Wartales today. Wartales is a game where you get procedurally generated characters based on a few questions you ask that are asked of you right in the beginning. Like, are your characters farmers? Are they bandits? Are they soldiers that are out of work? Whatever. And then you get to start with 4 characters that are procedurally generated, though you can customize them if you wish, each with their own little class or profession. And then you're sent out into the world to make fame and fortune. This is not a game about being a chosen one or heavy narrative driven. This is much more about creating your own stories in the moment. And everybody knows, who have been listening to this channel for a long time, these kind of games really light my fire. State of Decay, No Man's Sky, those kind of games that are just very heavily procedurally generated. I love it. So I was very excited about this. Once you're in the world, I believe there's more than one map to choose from, but you must unlock the other maps by playing the original one. Of course, I only get about 5 hours, so I have not gotten through that original map yet. And I don't know what it takes to get through that original map. But you basically traipse around doing stuff. You can take out bandits, take jobs for the Mercenary Guild. You can join the bandits and start making raids. You can recruit people from cities, and then you have to pay your troops, feed your troops, and keep them going. It's a CRPG, though, at its core for combat. When you enter a combat, you'll enter a kind of hex-based, not hex-based, but square-based, grid-based combat in the turn-based form. However, it's a very interesting combat system. With this one, you have what's called Valor Points, and they're collective through your entire band. Other than just attack and move, your characters, everything they do requires a Valor Point. They also have special abilities that as you level them up and unlock them, they can actually earn temporary Valor Points to be used just in combat, which makes Valor Point Economy the name of the game for these battles, which is really interesting. It was definitely a different take on the CRPG, in my opinion. I've come from playing like Wasteland 3, and then I played Baldur's Gate 3, which were two very different things. Baldur's Gate steeped in D&D systems and rules, while Wasteland is much more an action point heavy, standard CRPG sort of system. This one is a little bit different. Everybody gets to kind of move a certain amount of whatever, and then they get to attack, and then you can spend a Valor Point to do an additional action that is special. That was really interesting to me because it really kind of makes you think about where you're spending that Valor Point, how you're spending it, and how you can use that tactically. It also gives characters extra actions, which I think is really cool. So everybody gets to attack and move, and then any extra actions are Valor Points, and they're all specials based on how you've leveled up and built out your characters. I think the build system here is really interesting when you can build them because there's 2 levels of it. One, you have the combat, how they are a fighter, how they work in combat, whether they're a ranger and stealthy, whether they're a brute and they're all about crowd control, whether they're a warrior who's all about protection, or an archer. You can actually also get a secondary profession, which is just their career, like what they do. Are they a fisherman? Are they a craftsman? Are they a tinkerer? And each one of these things also adds to non-combat things, which I think really fleshed this out and kept it from getting boring fast, because The game is really a lot about just moving from fight to fight. But with this, you can, oh, do I have a fisherman? I'll go over here and fish and level up that fishing. Plus, the fishing, the blacksmithing, all of these different crafting things also have a mini game that keeps things interesting. And I really enjoyed that part of it, which we'll talk about in the pros. So that's the game. You continue to go through, it's got a day and night cycle, and after so much time, they get exhausted, you have to rest. And after a week, you have to pay them from your reserves that you've made, maybe looting, maybe taking jobs, whatever. And you also have to feed them every night that you sleep, so you have to kind of manage those foods and whatnot. In addition, your weapons, armor, and everything gets broken as you get into fights. Every character has armor, but when their armor is depleted until you repair that armor, the armor doesn't come back, which I thought was a really interesting system. And then they also have to be healed. They retain health. They don't just get healed outside of combat. So it is a real trudge, and also these characters, when they die, they are dead. They go into a dying state, and if you can't get to them before they die, they're gone. You've lost that character because it's procedural generation, which I also found really interesting and kind of cool. So that's it. That's the base of Wartales at its core. Let's get into the pros and cons. And I like to go positive first at all times. Pros, combat. Love this Valor Point economy system. I thought it's a really interesting, different way to do the CRPG stuff, in my opinion. It kind of brought something fresh. Now, in fairness, I have only played a handful of CRPGs in my life. I have never been super into CRPGs. I like them. I respect them. There are certain ones that I really enjoyed, such as Wasteland 3, Baldur's Gate 3. But I haven't played just tons of them. I have not played the bulk of them. So this might be a system from another game that I'm just not familiar with. But for me, it was brand new, and I frickin' loved it. I love the fact that, all of the characters also have some sort of ability that can give you a temporary Valor Point, which only can be expended in that combat session. So with that, and it's stuff like passively standing next to another character, or passively standing next to a bad guy, or killing a bad guy, and you really can refine what you want your character to do and how they're giving you Valor Points in combat. I just thought that was so cool. I love the combat in this game. My second pro, probably actually my biggest pro over combat, even though I mentioned combat first, the procedural generation in this game, absolutely love it. It gives the game infinite levels of replayability just to randomly spawn these characters. And I always love procedural generation especially with characters, because it gives you this unique attachment to your characters. You're attaching kind of, because they're blank slates almost, and they're coming at you, and you're the only person who's ever going to see those characters, it gives you kind of this attachment to them that I've always loved. This is my party. It's only going to exist right here, and I'm playing them through right now, and what's happening to them that's it. It's only going to happen to them. I've always loved that, and I think this game does it spectacularly in the medieval kind of setting, and I really enjoy that. My third pro is options. I know, not the game modes options, not that sort of thing. What I'm talking about is how you play the game seems very open and free. They have no problems with you just becoming a bandit and going batshit crazy and raiding caravans. In fact, there's plenty of merchant caravans that just walk around that you could just attack if you want to. There's a lot of things that you can ride the line between as well. There's morality choices, which I think are really interesting to be in a procedurally generated game like this. That you really have to kind of decide, well, I'm going to help these bandits because they're refugees, or am I going to help the guard because they're the guard and I want that. Maybe do I want this extra payday to take out this guy, but he's actually kind of a good guy, or do I want to, do the morality thing? I think that there is something really cool about that, and I enjoy that. I enjoy multiple ways to play, and I enjoy playing the same game. I enjoy when they put in enough options in a game so that playing it a different way each time feels like a different game. And then that comes to my fourth pro, probably my final pro, and that would be the relationship system. I haven't gotten to see a lot of this. Just the fact that it's in there excites me, and that is your characters actually because you can have ladies and fellas, and they will fall in love with each other. They will start to hate each other, become rivals. I think that's so cool. So absolutely cool. I've always loved stuff like that because that adds to that level of these are real people. These are just your real people that you have to deal with, that you're basically seeing their story play out in front of you. And I just really enjoy stuff like that. I think that this game really reminds me of Wildermyth, surprisingly, but with a much more serious take on it. That's where I would go with this. Wildermyth is much more fantasy, and while there's some terrible stuff that can happen in Wildermyth and some dark stuff, Wildermyth is much more like a storybook come to life, whereas Wartales is really like, this is a dark medieval sort of take on Wildermyth, and I really enjoy that. So that's it for pros. Let's get into the negatives. Let's get into the cons. These are going to be kind of nitpicky because I really like this game, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But biggest issue, absolutely biggest issue, I have to hit this one hard, the lack of tutorials in this game. They do not show you anything. There are a few pop-ups. Those pop-ups are far and few in between, and it is very hard to gather what I'm supposed to be doing and how I'm supposed to be doing things with that, especially if you decide to play with the controller, which I'm not gonna lie, I know CRPG hours out there are like, why would you ever play a CRPG with a controller? I'm gonna tell you why. I don't like having to constantly click on the screen to move. I like to just like sit back and use an analog controller so that I can move. And that's my biggest complaint. That's the biggest reason I like to use a controller over a keyboard, is because I don't like to constantly keep clicking. Oh, we're moving here. Now we're moving here. Now we're moving here. I hate that. I would rather just have the controller in my hand and slowly move them around. I know that's simple and silly, but it is. This game doesn't show you anything, though. Like, aside from that digression, the tutorials are just non-existent. And I did figure some stuff out. I did figure it out, but I made a lot of mistakes along the way. Maybe that's their goal, but they never really convey it to you that it is their goal to kind of put you in it that way. So I have to at least ding them on this, that like I really had this like helplessness feeling for the first like hour and a half, because it was just like, I don't know what the fuck is happening on the screen and what the dots mean and what this means and whatever. Like I said, there's just a few tutorial pop-ups that give you some idea, but especially for like buttons, they don't tell you what buttons do what anywhere, which is really frustrating. It's a trial and error thing, and that actually led to some mistakes. All right, so that one out of the way. The rest of these are, like I said, going to be kind of nitpicky. Kind of just on that, I don't really like that thing, but it's still definitely like overall these are drops in the bucket. The first one is how they do the non-combat inside buildings situation, or inside. So you're on this overworld map moving around it. When you get to like a city or like a cave or something like that, and you want to go into the cave to talk to people, basically you end up in this like still image it's three-dimensional, but it's like a still image with the characters just kind of sitting there. You can then, your characters aren't in it though, and you can kind of move your mouse around to things that highlight and then interact with them. It really almost felt like a weird one of those hide and finds sort of games where you're like trying to pick stuff out of the picture, and it just, I understand why they did it. It's cheap. It's a lot cheaper than having your actual characters move around the area. But it just felt out of touch with the rest of the game for me, because you have the characters moving around, you can see them everywhere, and then you just end up in this kind of still kind of aesthetic. And you can interact with stuff, like in one cave there was stuff to mine, so I had one of my miners grab stuff, and then there's in the blacksmith shop you can blacksmith stuff, and then your character will show up for that, but then they'll vanish again. And everybody's just kind of sitting there with some idle animations. I don't know, It rubs me the wrong way, and it takes me out of it just a little bit every time I do it. And again, this is really extremely nitpicky. Most people aren't even going to notice it. It was just something that irked me. And the other thing that kind of irked me, and my last pro, is the music. It's not terrible music. It just never really, for me, because this is a very beholdery thing, for me, it never really resonated. It never really got me pumped, you know. You compare it to Baldur's Gate, which I know is a much bigger thing with a lot more money, but their music, like, every time you're in a fight, it's pumping you up, it's making you feel sad if it's a sad moment. You know, the music was really good in it and just really kept you going. This one, not so much. Even Wildermyth had, like, the musical flourishes just kept me going. This one, I just never really, the music never really landed with me. I never really felt that, like, yeah, I'm in a fight and it's going to be cool sort of thing. And again, might be the aesthetic they're going for. This is extremely nitpicky. Other people might love the music. Just saying, for me, it didn't really hit. So that brings us to whether or not I'm gonna stick with it. Answer is resounding yes. Right now, I'm actually streaming it for my Tuesday stream, and I'm really enjoying it. It gives me kind of the weird State of Decay vibes, but in a medieval setting with the CRPG kind of stuff, and I love that. And I'm getting really attached to my characters. So I'm definitely going to stick with this for a while. I think these kind of games, these kind of procedurally generated games, aren't games to necessarily, like, put 200 straight hours in. I think they're the kind of games that you pick up, you play for 10, you put down for a little bit, then you pick up and play for 10 here and there. And I love those kind of games. They're games with infinite replayability that anytime you're bored and you don't have something, you can just go, I think I'm going to start a new mercenary band on Wartales. And this is the kind of thing for me. This goes right up there with State of Decay and Wildermyth for me as some of the best use of procedural generation out there. Are they doing anything super creative and new in procedural generation? No, but they're doing what they're doing really, really well, and I like it in a setting that you don't actually get to see that often. So they're definitely bringing something to the table, and I will be cool. But did I get it wrong? Did I get it right? You can comment in the comments below and let me know. You can also reach us on Facebook at OldManGamingDH and on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. The link will be in the description below, and influence this and all of our shows from there. As long as you keep watching and listening, we'll keep making it. You guys have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holiday, and I will see you in 2024.